Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Political Talk to JB, and today I have Mr. Aaron Reitz, who is campaigning for Attorney General, representing the great state of Texas. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Julian. Thanks for having me.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and the position that you're campaigning for.
Yeah, so look, again, my name's Aaron Reitz. I'm running for Texas Attorney General. I most recently served in a presidentially appointed Senate-confirmed role in the United States Justice Department in the Trump administration under Attorney General Bondi. Before then, I was Senator Cruz's chief of staff. Before then, I was Attorney General Ken Paxton's Deputy Attorney General for Legal Strategy. I spent several years in private practice. I clerked on the Texas Supreme Court, went to law school at the University of Texas. And in between my undergraduate years, I went to A&M for undergrad. So whether you're an Aggie or a Longhorn, I satisfy both camps. In between UT and A&M, I was an officer in the Marine Corps, deployed once to Afghanistan. And so going back all those years, I've been in the fight on all of the major issues that Texans care about, from border security, election integrity, the Second Amendment, parental rights, protecting our kids against the LGBTQ agenda, pro-life issues, and the list goes on. And it culminated in President Trump nominating me to the Justice Department. And during that, in December of 2024, he called me, quote, a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. And I think that's exactly the kind of candidate that Republican primary voters want as their next AG. We have been served well, I think, by Attorney General Ken Paxton for the last decade plus. And folks want to ensure that the foot stays on the gas, that we continue in as high energy a direction as we've enjoyed and this state has benefited from the past several years. And I think that someone who President Trump described as a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution is exactly suited for that job and will be ready to continue the fight, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on day one. And so folks can learn more about me at aaronreitz.com, AARONREITZ.com, to learn more about my campaign. And I would encourage folks especially to link to my X account at Aaron_Reitz, and that's where we post most of our stuff day to day. So that's about me.
Gotcha. As it relates to immigration and border security, that's a hot topic for the state of Texas. What is your plan for mitigating that and making sure that the people of Texas don't have to worry about that and hear about it so much as we see now?
Yeah, look, I think that under the 4 years of the Biden administration, the United States in general and Texas in particular had to suffer from what can only be called an invasion of tens of millions of illegal aliens. And that influx, that invasion of aliens into Texas communities has hurt our infrastructure. It's hurt our public welfare programs. It's hurt our education system. It has hurt our housing market. And it's hurt us culturally as well, where we've seen an influx of increasingly isolated, non-English speaking communities in and around the state that becomes very difficult to integrate into the American way of life. Of course, we embrace people from all over the world to come to the United States. However, we able to have a controlled inflow of very limited immigration on our own terms so that we can ensure assimilation economically, culturally, linguistically. And so when you have tens of millions of illegal aliens just pouring into the border en masse, it becomes completely unsustainable and hurts our country, but it hurts Texas in particular as a border state. And so what we need in order to fix the giant mess that President Biden handed to President Trump is you need a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution to really partner with the Trump administration to ensure that, number one, the border stays closed and sealed, but that, number two, you have an attorney general who is partnering with the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security, as well as the border czar, Tom Homan, to effectuate mass deportations, to ensure that if you came here as a lawbreaker, you don't get to stay here as a lawbreaker. And so the attorney general is going to play a vital role, not only partnering with local and state law enforcement, but also really integrating with the Trump administration and federal law enforcement to ensure that, number one, the border stays secure, and that, number two, illegal aliens are expeditiously deported. Now, my experience when I was Attorney General Ken Paxton's deputy for legal strategy, I was responsible for coordinating the Texas v. Biden docket. And a huge component of the Texas v. Biden docket was the border security and illegal immigration lawsuits that we brought. I was responsible for 46 lawsuits against the 46th president. Over 15 of those lawsuits had to do with border security, whether it was the border wall or asylum claims or parole processes, or the ease with which families would claim so-called unaccompanied minors. All of these issues I have litigated, investigated, sued, defended, and appealed on every matter under the sun with respect to immigration and border security. And so Texans won't find an AG candidate who is more ready on day one to partner with the Trump administration. I'm a former member of the Trump administration as a presidentially appointed Senate confirmed official of the Justice Department, and somebody who's actually litigated on border security. Folks are not going to find an AG better suited to take the reins of the AG's office and ensure that Texas doesn't suffer from the after effects of the invasion of illegals that we had to deal with under Biden.
Well said. Election integrity. What is your plan on ensuring that registered voters don't have to worry about election integrity, things that we hear about, votes being discarded, people being able to vote with fake IDs and things of that nature?
Yeah. Look, ensuring that citizens that have the right to vote have confidence in their elections is a bedrock of the legitimacy of our democratic system. If you have widespread lack of confidence among the population, if Texans don't believe that their votes are going to be counted, that an illegal vote that's cast will not be counted or will be discarded properly under the law, we can have our political differences. You may have one party that's in power one cycle and another party that's in power in the next cycle. But typically we're able as Americans to endure the changing of the guard from time to time. But that ability to accept the results of an election, whether your side wins or your side loses, depends entirely upon citizens and voters' confidence in the integrity of their elections. And so this isn't just about, there are boxes hiding under the table and they're getting counted, although that happens, right? This isn't about, the machines have a glitch and either votes were either completely thrown out or votes were double counted or something like that. Although that happens, okay? The point is a much broader one, which is election integrity matters because the legitimacy that the citizenry feels about its election hinges upon that integrity, okay? And so the Texas Attorney General plays a critical role in ensuring that our elections are secure. So, for example, the Texas AG's office has an election integrity unit, and it is able to engage in lawsuits investigations, and in some limited cases can in fact bring lawsuits in partnership with certain district attorneys and other state or local law enforcement. So I will tell you, anybody that says that election fraud isn't happening is either gaslighting you or just straight up lying. Okay, the Texas AG's office just uncovered dozens of fraudulent ballots cast in some of our major urban areas from the 2024 election. So it's actually happening right now. Now, when I was serving as Attorney General Paxton's deputy for legal strategies from 2020 to 2023, I was involved in election integrity deeply. In December of 2020, under Attorney General Paxton's leadership, I spearheaded what is now known as Texas v. Pennsylvania. This was a challenge that we filed directly with the U.S. Supreme Court, challenging the constitutionality of 4 other states' administrations of their elections. We alleged that the manner in which they had run their elections was in violation of the United States Constitution's electors clause, which gives only state legislatures the ability to manage their presidential elections. But in 4 states, either state or federal courts or executive branch entities usurped the legislative prerogatives to run their elections, and therefore contributed to what I would call, and what many Americans would call, to be a very unsettling 2020 presidential election. Some people have said it's a fraud election. Some people have said it's a sham election. Lots of different words are used. But what I could tell you for sure is that that presidential election was managed in a way that was no doubt unconstitutional. And then since then, I was also the lead on the Texas AG's election integrity team for the 2020 cycle, as well as the 2022 cycle. And so there is no one else in this race that understands what it takes to litigate and investigate and defend and appeal on matters relating to election integrity. And so as we move into the future, when I'm elected Texas AG in the fall of 26, and then I'm sworn in 27, I'm going to have several state and local election cycles that are happening all over Texas. And the Texas AG's office, which has branches all over the state, it has to play sort of a watchman's role over how all of these things are done. We have in many cases both uniformed and plainclothes officers that are standing by at various polling locations in central counts. We have our lawyers back at our headquarters in Austin that are teeing up lawsuits, getting ready to both sue on the plaintiff's side, but also defend against lawsuits against the state. And so we've got all those things queued up, and we kind of have like it's really like a war room that we have as we approach elections, and then in the days after an election, ensuring that the state AG plays a sort of watchman sentinel role, looking across the state to ensure that the foul play that often happens in our big blue cities, whether that's Houston and Harris County, Dallas County, Austin with Travis County, San Antonio, where I'm originally from, in Bexar County, there's all kinds of shenanigans that are happening in these big blue cities. And we want to make sure that that voters in those cities are not the victims of election fraud. And the AG plays a critical role in that. And you're going to find me very, very energetically engaged on election integrity. It's why so many patriots, if you follow me on my X account at Aaron_Reitz, you'll see people who have worked on election integrity at the national and state level have put out warm words of encouragement, support, and even endorsement for my campaign for AG, because they know that if your issue is election integrity, Aaron Reitz for Texas AG is your candidate to back for this race.
Well said. When we talk about redistricting and, redrawing the lines and things of that nature, what is your plan on making sure that redistricting will be done in a fair and reasonable manner?
Yeah, so this is another issue. So look, redistricting, based upon what the state of Texas gets back from its centennial, or once every 10 years, I should say, census, lines are redrawn, right? Every 10 years, we see congressional districts change. We see state House, state Senate districts change slightly on the margins to ensure that various state and federal laws with respect to district lines are adhered to, and in such a manner as we can best select our representatives to represent the various regions and populations throughout the state. And so when I was at the Texas AG's office from 2020 to 2023, we had to deal with the incredible amounts of litigation that flowed from the 2020 census. So census happened in 2020. New lines get proposed by the state legislature during the 2021 legislative session. And then what always happens, no matter what, no matter how well you draw these lines, the lines and the districts will get litigated. All kinds of groups will litigate them. You've got some of the wealthy groups will litigate the lines because maybe they got carved out of one district and put in another and they don't like it. You see a lot of some of the groups that represent sort of more of the left-wing flavor of some of racial minority interest groups that claim to speak for all racial minorities, but don't in fact do so in a way that is faithful. And so they will argue, okay, these lines that you just drew are racist. And so we're going to litigate these racist lines that you just drew. And obviously, it's all politically charged nonsense, but the state AG then plays a critical role in defending the state legislature's lines. So census comes out, legislature draws the lines. It's a very detailed process, okay? The lines then get set, the new maps get announced, and then the AG then immediately gets bombarded with lawsuits. Everyone's arguing that these lines are bad for whatever reason, okay? They're unfair, they're unjust, they're inequitable, they don't represent the right numbers, they're racist, et cetera, et cetera. You know all the arguments, right? And people have heard these arguments before. So the state AG has to litigate those things. When I was there from 2020 to 2023, I was right in the middle of the redistricting litigation. And so I know exactly how these plays are going to unfold moving into the future, not just during our next census in 2030, but also you're seeing right now headlines about, whether the Texas state government is going to work with the Trump administration on calling a special session to redraw some of the lines. That's not been settled yet. We don't know what's going to happen, whether this next special session that Governor Abbott has called, that's going to start on July 21st, coming up in just a few weeks. We don't know yet whether that's going to deal with, redistricting, like a mid-decade redistricting, which doesn't often happen, but it can happen under certain circumstances. We don't know whether that's going to happen. But if the lines do get redrawn in a special session, it's going to be one of the first things that I deal with as the next Texas AG. And even if I don't deal with it on day one as Texas AG, I absolutely am going to deal with it as we gear up for the 2030 census, which will then be dealt with by the 2031 legislative session, in which I hope to be, at that point, running for my second term as Texas AG in 2030, and we'll deal with it again. But again, on redistricting, the Texas AG is responsible for defending the state's lines. This is a massive responsibility that requires dozens and dozens of attorneys in the AG's office to deal with it as their full-time job. And it requires an AG who understands the issue and will vigorously defend the state's prerogatives when it comes to drawing lines. And when it comes to the race for Texas AG, there's no one else in this primary who has the kind of understanding needed to be able to lead that effort. And that's why I'm running for state AG, because I know what I'm doing. And the other ones, simply, with all due respect to them, they're fine legislators. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to whether they have what it takes to be the state AG. And that's why I'm running. Folks can learn more about my background at aaronreitz.com, AARONREITZ.com.
Last question. Why should the people of Texas vote for you as their next Attorney General?
I think that the people of Texas want what President Trump described me as when he put me in the Justice Department just a few months ago. And that is someone who is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. This is what Texans want. They want a true MAGA attorney. They want a warrior for the Constitution. My record, going all the way back from when I was an officer in the Marine Corps, a veteran of the Afghanistan War, through my time leading conservative organizations, both during law school and beyond, my time clerking on the Texas Supreme Court for now Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock, my time in private practice, my 3 years as Attorney General Ken Paxton's offensive coordinator, which he often called me, my 2 years to Senator Cruz Chief of Staff, and then culminating with my elevation to the Justice Department in the Trump administration to serve under the great United States Attorney General Pam Bondi. My experience, my record, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all of the major issues that Texans care about, whether it's border security, election integrity, school choice, protecting our kids against the LGBTQ agenda, parental rights, governmental transparency and honesty in government, the Texans' constitutional rights, the Bill of Rights, Second Amendment, guns. You pick the issue. I have touched it in a serious way. in a manner that none of my primary challengers can possibly even come close to. And so my record stands on its own. It's why President Trump called me a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. And it's exactly why Texans, and in particular right now during primary season, Texas Republican primary voters can confidently back me as their nominee. And they can learn more about me at aaronreitz.com, AARONREITZ.com, and follow me on X at Aaron_Reitz.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Aaron Reitz, candidate for the state of Texas, Attorney General. Aaron, thank you for your time and best of luck to you in your campaign.
Thank you, sir. God bless. We'll see you next time.